He called me a loser. In front of 12 people. While chewing steak I paid for. That's when I knew the truth couldn't wait any longer. My name is Daniel Matthews. I'm 33. Financial analyst. New York City. I built everything I have from nothing, no handouts, no shortcuts, no family name behind me. Correction, I thought it was my family name. For most of my life I've chased something I never caught. A sentence. 3 words. 1 look. I'm proud of you. But my father, Richard Matthews, real estate royalty in Boston, never gave it to me. No matter how many hours I worked. No matter what I built. No matter what I gave up. It was always James. The golden boy. The heir. The one who never even had to try. I was tolerated. Useful when needed. Ignored when not. So when I got promoted last quarter, partner track, 6-figure raise, firm-wide recognition, I did something I'd never done before. I bought him a car. A brand new Mercedes S-Class. Custom interior. Delivered to his driveway on Father's Day morning. He didn't know it yet. I planned to surprise him. And for the first time in years, I felt something stupid. Hope. I left Manhattan at dawn. Pulled into their gated driveway just before 9 a.m. James's Tesla was already there. Of course. I parked the Mercedes under the elm tree. Black with tan leather, just how Dad likes it. Had a bow on it the size of a parachute. Then I rang the bell. No one answered. So I let myself in. That's when I heard the laughter, low and relaxed, coming from the backyard. I stepped through the kitchen. There they were, James, my mother, my father. Drinking mimosas. Laughing like it was already noon. My father looked up. And just said, "You're late." No smile. No hug. Nothing. I said, "You should come see the driveway." He didn't move. Just sipped his drink and said, "We'll see it later." That was it. I stood there, holding a gift for the man who never once held me. And I realized something. That car wasn't for him. It was my last attempt to matter. And it was about to backfire spectacularly. He finally walked out to see it. An hour later, everyone followed James, my mother, a few neighbors who had wandered in for brunch. He stood in front of the Mercedes and just nodded. "Nice," he said. James whistled. "Whoa, who got this for you, Dad?" That's when Richard Matthews smiled. And said, "Sometimes you've got to treat yourself." I stood 5 feet away. He didn't look at me. Didn't acknowledge the gift? Didn't correct the lie? He took credit for a 6-figure car I bought him with my own money, money earned without his help, his name, or his approval. My mother's eyes flicked toward me. She knew. But she said nothing. James clapped my father on the back. "You deserve it, Pops. About time you drove something that actually reflects who you are." I watched my father run his fingers along the chrome trim like it was his by birthright. And I realized something else. This wasn't negligence. This was deliberate. He didn't forget I gave it to him. He wanted to erase me. Again. I didn't speak. Didn't interrupt. Just stood there while they took photos, clinked glasses, and started talking about the big Father's Day dinner later that evening. Which, of course, I hadn't been invited to until that morning. Just an afterthought. "Hope you'll stick around," my mother said, placing a hand on my arm like I was a guest, not her son. I nodded. Wouldn't miss it. But my heart wasn't in that backyard anymore. It was in my bag. Inside a sealed envelope. DNA results. They'd arrived last week. I'd ordered the test months ago on a hunch. No big theory. No dramatic suspicion. Just a quiet, crawling doubt that had been growing for years. I hadn't opened the envelope yet. Didn't need to. I already knew what it said. And tonight, he was going to read it at his own dinner table. Dinner was set for 7. By the time I walked into the dining room, the table was full. Laughter. Wine glasses. That low, smug buzz of people who think the world belongs to them. My seat, the one I've always taken, was occupied. "Bye, James." He saw me. Smiled. "Sit anywhere, Danny." That word. Danny. I haven't gone by that since high school. They use it like a leash, keeps me small, familiar, manageable. I took the seat at the far end. Quiet. Out of the way. Dad stood. Glass raised. "I just want to say something." Everyone went silent. I've had a lot of wins in my life. Built the business from the ground up. Married the love of my life. Raised 2 incredible sons. He looked right at James. Not even a flicker toward me. And today, well, I decided it was time to celebrate myself a little. Got myself a new car. Polite laughter. A man's got to reward his own work sometimes. No one else will. My hand gripped the envelope in my lap. Edges curling under my fingers. He sat down. Looked satisfied. Like he'd just announced his legacy was intact. James leaned over and said, "Good speech, huh?" I didn't respond. because in that moment the decision was made. The story was ending, but not the way he thought. Not with applause. Not with another year of pretending. Cleared my throat. Just once. The room turned. "Happy Father's Day," I said, and placed the sealed envelope in the center of the table. No one moved. Not yet. "What's that?" he asked finally. "Proof," I said, "that you were right." "Right about what?" I pushed my chair back, stood slowly, calm, in control. "That I'm not your son." Silence. My mother's fork slipped off her plate. James froze mid-sip. I didn't wait for the questions. I just turned, walked toward the door, and left that legacy behind. I didn't wait for anyone to follow. I stepped into the night air, pulled the keys from my pocket, and walked straight to the Mercedes. Slid into the driver's seat. The smell was still new, leather, money, power. I started the engine. The twin-turbo V8 purred like it was built to erase everything behind me. Behind the glass, I saw them, pressed up against the dining room windows. My mother, James, Richard. He hadn't opened the envelope yet. Didn't matter. He would. Soon. I pulled out of the driveway slow and smooth. Not a single word spoken. No horn. No tires squealing. That wasn't the kind of exit I wanted. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was something cleaner. I took the long way back to Manhattan. No music. Just the sound of the road and the quiet fire building in my chest. Missed calls started hitting my phone halfway through Connecticut. First my mother, then James. By the time I crossed into the city, Richard called. I let them all go to voicemail. The last one I listened to, James sounding frantic. "Danny, what the hell is this? Dad says you're just trying to cause drama. Just call me. Okay? Drama? No. Drama is yelling across a dinner table. This wasn't that. This was control. Precision. And it was just beginning. I parked the car in my building's garage. Covered it. Locked it. Filed the key. Then I walked upstairs. Made a drink. And pulled out my phone. 15 missed calls. For voicemails. 3 text messages from a number I hadn't seen in a long time. My mother. "Please, can we talk? You don't understand everything. It wasn't supposed to come out like this. Wasn't supposed to come out." That told me everything I needed to know. She knew. And now, they were scrambling. She showed up at my apartment the next morning. Didn't text. Didn't call. Just knocked. I opened the door and didn't say a word. She looked smaller than I remembered. No makeup. Puffy eyes. A silk scarf around her neck like that made her softer. "Daniel," she said. I stepped aside. She walked in like she had before. Like she still belonged here. She didn't. She sat at the edge of the couch. Clutched her purse with both hands. I stayed standing. "You caught me off guard," she began. "Last night, that wasn't the time." I waited. No interruptions. I wanted to hear how she spun it. She looked up at me, eyes shining, voice trembling. "I didn't mean for things to go this far." Still no apology. Still no truth. I said, "You knew." She nodded just once. "I found out when you were 5. There was a man I used to know, before your father and I got serious. It was a mistake. A moment." I stared at her. Let the silence stretch. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice cracked. "Because it didn't matter. Richard raised you. He gave you his name, his house, his life." "No," I said. "He gave me nothing, except reasons to wonder why I never measured up." She flinched like I'd hit her. "I wanted to protect you," she said. I nodded slowly. "By letting me grow up with a man who couldn't stand the sight of me." Tears started then. Soft ones. Quiet. I didn't care. "I loved you," she whispered. "That never changed." I looked at the door. "Go home, Mom." She didn't move at first. Then she stood, walked past me, paused at the door like she might say something more. She didn't. She left. And for the first time in my life I felt it. Weightless. Alone, yes, but also free. 2 nights later, James showed up. Unannounced. Wearing a half smile like we were still kids sharing bunk beds. not grown men divided by decades of resentment. And he didn't come alone. Standing just behind him was a lawyer. Slim suit, leather folder. I opened the door, leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "Let me guess," I said. "Dad sent you." James stepped forward. "We just want to talk, man. Man. Not Danny this time. Interesting." The lawyer nodded slightly, silent. "Watching." "5 minutes," I said, stepping aside. They walked in like it was still their world. Sat down. Lawyer opened the folder. Careful. Rehearsed. James started first. "Look, things got heated the other night. I think we can all agree it didn't need to go that way." I didn't reply. He cleared his throat. "Dad's willing to put this whole thing behind us. Publicly, nothing changes. He keeps his name. You keep your distance." The lawyer slid a document across the table. "Mutual non-disclosure," James explained. "Standard language. You agree not to speak about the DNA. In exchange, Dad agrees to transfer full title of the Mercedes to you. No drama. No legal back and forth." I looked at the paper. Crisp. Clean. Like this was just business. Then I looked at James. "He still thinks this is about a car." James hesitated. "Isn't it?" I smiled. Once. Then tore the document clean down the center. "Tell Dad this isn't something he can buy back." James stood. Anger flaring, but still buttoned under that suit. "You think this makes you powerful? Walking away from the family? From everything he built?" I met his eyes. "I'm not walking away. I was never part of it." They left without another word. But as the door clicked shut, I already knew what came next. They were scared. Because the story wasn't just personal anymore. It was about legacy. Name. Reputation. And I wasn't done yet. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. Because I was focused. When a man like Richard Matthews sends in a lawyer within 72 hours, it's not panic. It's prevention. He was sealing leaks before they started. But the thing about a leak? Sometimes it starts inside the walls. The next morning I made a call. Thomas Keller. I'd never met him. Never spoken. Just a name printed once on a sealed envelope on a test I almost didn't take. But now? He was the only piece of this puzzle I hadn't turned over. He picked up on the third ring. His voice was deeper than I expected. "Thomas Keller." I introduced myself. Silence. Then a breath. "I've been waiting for this call. We met that Friday in a coffee shop halfway between Boston and Manhattan. Neutral ground. He wore a gray sport coat. No tie. Looked me in the eye like he'd known me longer than 5 minutes. "You look like her," he said. "Not him." I sat down. "I need facts. Not stories." He nodded. "I met your mother before she married. It wasn't supposed to be serious. But then she vanished. Moved cities. Married into money. Never returned a single call. I didn't ask if he loved her. Didn't matter. I asked one question. Why now?" He took a slow sip of coffee. "Because I saw your name in a trade article last year. Finance. NYC. I knew who you had to be. But I wasn't going to reach out. I figured if you ever wanted the truth, you'd come find it. And what would I find?" He didn't flinch. A man who's made mistakes. Who didn't fight hard enough to know if he had a son. I nodded. Once. Then reached into my coat and slid a copy of the DNA report across the table. He read it. Said nothing. But something in his jaw relaxed. "I'm not looking for a second father," I said. "Good," he replied. I was never trying to be one. The conversation was brief. Clean. Direct. When I left, he said, "You ever need anything, a name, a signature, a fact, you call me." I walked out into the wind. And smiled. Because now? I had something Richard didn't. Proof. And someone willing to stand behind it. 2 days later, a file arrived. From a probate attorney I'd quietly hired in Boston. I didn't ask for legal threats. I asked for answers. Specifically, the Matthews Family Trust. It took one phone call, a few credentials, and a discreet favor. The document was 117 pages long. But I only needed one. Page 73. Beneficiary structure. James Matthews primary. Richard Matthews Jr. alternate. Daniel Matthews omitted by grantor's instruction. That word. Omitted. Not excluded. Not to be determined. Omitted. Deliberate. Final. Signed 2 years ago. So while I'd been sending birthday cards and showing up for holidays, he'd already deleted me on paper. James got the business, the property, the shares. I got silence. It wasn't about money. Not really. It was about erasure. He didn't just prefer James. He'd rewritten the family history to erase me from it. I forwarded the trust page to my mother. No message. No commentary. Her response came 15 minutes later. Daniel, please don't do this. No apology. Just control. Still trying to steer the narrative. Protect his name. Protect her place. But I didn't respond. Because this story wasn't hers anymore. That night, I poured a drink, sat at my desk, and opened a new document. Title, Matthews Property Holdings, Internal Irregularities. Then I copied in something I hadn't told anyone yet. Last year, I reviewed their real estate portfolio as part of a consulting favor for a friend. And in that data, I found something odd. Multiple shell LLCs. Cross-billed maintenance contracts. Consultants being paid 6 figures for 0 deliverables. I didn't connect the dots back then. Yeah? I knew exactly what I was looking at. Fraud. Quiet. Layered. Protected by legacy. Until now. I didn't blow it up. I handed it over. Quiet. Legal. Precise. A 36-page report anonymized through a third-party compliance firm I sometimes consulted for. No fingerprints. No personal vendetta. Just data, dates, and names. Richard Matthews' name was on 12 of those pages. So was James's. Millions in false write-offs. Inflated consulting payments. A real estate shell game played across 4 states. The kind of thing that doesn't scream crime. Until the right person reads it. So I mailed it physically to a specific IRS investigator. Not a hotline. Not a website form. A desk guide once worked across during a financial fraud audit 3 years ago. Her name was Caroline Becker. Sharp. Unsentimental. Obsessed with documentation. I included one note. This is not revenge. It's correction. Then I waited. 3 days later, I started getting texts again. James? What did you do? Why are Dad's accounts frozen? Did you talk to someone? I ignored all of them. Because it wasn't me they needed to answer to now. It was federal. And that wasn't the only hit coming. I had one more file. One I kept to myself for over a year. A quiet little discrepancy in a property zoning permit, one that James had personally signed off on despite conflict of interest clauses in their investment charter. It was small, but it was illegal. And that's what made it beautiful. Because James always thought he was untouchable. Always thought he could coast on charm, on bloodlines, on Dad's protection. Not anymore. By the time the audit letters hit their mailbox, I was in Miami, different coast, different phone, different name on the lease. And that Mercedes? Sold. Proceeds sent to an anonymous fund for whistleblowers tied to financial ethics education. A symbolic play, but also a message. Your name doesn't protect you. Not from truth. Not from me. James called from a blocked number. I answered out of curiosity, not mercy. You smug piece of, he started. I hung up. 15 seconds later, a voicemail pinged. You think this makes you better than us? You think Dad's going down alone? You're dragging your own name into the mud, Daniel. There's no coming back from this. There it was, the desperation. Not rage. Not even defense. Just fear. Because James always played offense. This was the first time he was backed into a corner. I didn't reply. 2 hours later, it was my mother's turn. She didn't call. She came in person. Again. This time I didn't let her inside. We spoke through the intercom. Daniel. Please. He's sick. I didn't respond. He's under investigation. They've frozen our accounts. James says. I'm not interested in what James says. Silence. Then a tone I hadn't heard in years. Real. Tired. Broken. I should have told you the truth years ago. You didn't deserve any of this. I thought I was protecting you, but I was protecting myself. From the fallout. From the shame. I didn't speak. She kept going. I let him hurt you. Over and over. And I let you think it was your fault. I can't take that back. But I can say it now. I'm sorry. A long pause. You were always the best part of this family. We just didn't want to admit it. I leaned on the wall beside the speaker. Closed my eyes. I didn't cry. I didn't reply. But something in me let go. And something colder settled in. Because apologies don't erase decades. And the truth? It was already doing what I couldn't. Stripping them down. Piece by piece. It started with a local paper. Prominent Boston developer under IRS investigation. By noon it spread. Business blogs. Real estate forums. Syndicated news tickers. Richard Matthews' name was everywhere. The article was clean. Professional. No drama, no embellishment. Just facts, pulled from public filings and agency statements. Words like fraudulent write-offs, conflict of interest, financial misrepresentation. James's name appeared in the 3rd paragraph. He'd co-signed half the permits. approved the transfers, helped structure the deals. What they thought was buried under paperwork was suddenly lit up like a Christmas tree. I didn't celebrate. I just watched. A former coworker sent me a screenshot from LinkedIn. James's partner title had quietly been removed from the Matthews Group company page. 30 minutes later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. We should talk. You win. But there's more you don't know. No name. But I didn't need one. It was from one of Richard's former board members. I replied with a time and a place. Neutral. Downtown cafe. Public. He was already seated when I arrived. Looked older than I remembered. Less smug. More cautious. He didn't waste time. Richard's retiring. Effective immediately. Internal vote happened this morning. I nodded. No reaction. He's selling off assets. Quietly. Trying to cover what he can before the audits dig deeper. I let him talk. He leaned in. But you should know something. He changed his will. Recently. Right before this all blew up. That caught my attention. He left everything to James. I blinked. Why tell me that? He hesitated. Because you should also know. James is trying to move those assets offshore. Fast. I sat back. Processing. He's going to try and rebuild somewhere else, the man continued. New name. New company. Same blueprint. Typical. You said there's more I don't know. The man nodded. Check the Glenridge account. Last 4 digits, 9127. It's in your name. I stared at him. I've never opened a Glenridge account. You didn't. Your mother did. 20 years ago. He slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside, banking records, wire transfers, trust documents. She'd been setting money aside all along. For me. Hidden from Richard. Hidden from James. Over $480,000. Untouched. A silent apology. I didn't react. Not there. Not yet. But when I walked out of that cafe, I understood one thing clearly. They'd built an empire by stepping over me. Yeah? They were stepping on rubble. I didn't touch the Glenridge money. Not at first. I needed to understand it. Track every dollar. Every transfer. Every statement from the last 20 years. It was all their small deposits made quarterly. Diversified investments. Conservative growth. Clean. Legit. And all in my name. I called the bank. Verified everything. Then I did the only thing that made sense. I transferred it. Every cent into a new trust. Not for me. For no one. The Daniels Foundation. Silent. Unpublished. Structured to fund scholarships for kids like I was. Overlooked, underestimated, uninvited. No press. No plaque. Just private direction, ironclad. Richard's money, or at least what she scraped out from under him, was going to build something better than him. And James? He wouldn't see a dime. By now, his name had started disappearing from the portfolios. Business partners cutting ties. Vendors going silent. I kept my distance. No interviews. No comments. My revenge was already complete. Then came the final act. Thanksgiving. I didn't go home. Didn't answer the calls. Instead, I booked a table for one. Upper East Side. Corner window. Ordered the chef's menu. Sat with a glass of Pinot and watched the city move, people wrapped in coats and laughter, lives unfolding. And for the first time in 33 years, I didn't feel like a shadow in someone else's story. I was the author now. Not the heir. Not the mistake. Not the silent seat at the table. Just Daniel. Just free. The day after Thanksgiving, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Boston area code. I let it go. Voicemail came through a minute later. I listened once. It was Richard. His voice was slower now. Hollowed out. Daniel. I don't know what's left to say. They're investigating everything. James is blaming everyone but himself. Your mother, she's barely speaking to either of us. He paused. Then came the line I'd waited 3 decades to hear. You were the only one who built something on your own. No apology. No real remorse. Just recognition, the kind a dying king gives to the son he tried to erase. I deleted the voicemail. There was nothing left to fix. Later that afternoon, a letter arrived by courier. Handwritten. Thick stock paper. Gold embossed. From the Matthews family attorney. Inside was a formal invitation to re-engage in succession planning conversations. Translation. James is burning it all down and you're the only one left who can hold a match without setting yourself on fire. I didn't respond. They hadn't invited me to the table when they were feasting. They wouldn't see me now that the table was ash. Instead, I walked 4 blocks to my new office. It was small. Clean. Private. Keller Matthews Advisory. Yes, I took his name. Thomas Keller. Not as a sentimental gesture. As a statement. The truth was no longer a secret. It was on the door. My first client? A non-profit being exploited by a crooked board. They didn't need speeches. They needed strategy. That was my new work. Cleaning messes made by men who thought no one would challenge them. Just like Richard. Just like James. My story didn't end with a hug. Or a reunion. Or a second chance. It ended with clarity. And a locked door. Behind me, everything I never needed. Ahead of me, everything I was about to build. It was spring when I saw him again. Not planned. Not dramatic. I was in Boston for a client meeting, walking through the seaport when I spotted him outside a brokerage office, alone, hunched over, coat too big for the body that used to command boardrooms. Richard Matthews. Real estate legend. Titan. Now just an old man waiting for a car that wasn't coming. He didn't see me. Or maybe he did and pretended not to. That part didn't matter. What mattered was how still he looked. Not calm, hollow. Like everything inside had collapsed and no one had noticed. I stood there for a moment, watching the man who once controlled every room, every headline, every decision, reduced to silence and weather. And I felt nothing. No rage. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just distance. He was a name on my birth certificate. But not my story. I left without speaking. Didn't look back. That night, I had dinner with a client and her teenage son. Smart kid asked 1,000 questions about finance. About control. About how to protect what you build from people who didn't build it. I told him something my father never told me. Don't wait for anyone to hand you a seat. Build your own table. He nodded like he understood. And maybe he did. Because people like me, the ones they overlook, the ones they dismiss, we don't win by being louder. We win by being sharper. Cleaner. Unshakable. The Matthews name didn't survive the audit. James tried to rebrand. New firm. Different logo. Hired PR to spin the collapse as strategic restructuring. But reputation isn't something you can rent. By fall, he was out of the industry. Last I heard, he was doing consulting work for second-tier developers in Tampa. My mother moved to Vermont. Bought a cottage near the water. She sends birthday cards now unsigned. Just blank notes with money inside. I don't cash them. Richard never recovered. The IRS pinned most of the violations on him. Settled out of court. He paid quietly. Sold off half the properties to cover fines and legal costs. But the real punishment wasn't financial. It was that no one feared him anymore. Legacy gone. Control gone. And worst of all, no one left to intimidate. He died the following year. Heart failure. James tried to organize a memorial. No one came. I got the email invitation. Didn't even open it. I spent that day at the office onboarding 2 new clients. Small businesses. Family-owned. Trying to survive a system stacked against them. I know that system. I used to be buried in it. Yeah? I build exits. Clean ones. Sharp ones. Ones that leave the guilty exposed and the quiet men standing. And the car? The Mercedes? Sold it for exactly $112,000. Every dollar went into a grant program I named privately. It funds one thing. The cost of starting over. Because I know what it costs. And what it's worth. They erased me. So I disappeared. And when they finally looked for me, I wasn't there to save them.